bottom to the first fly. There's a hit. Let's see what we've got. I use 4-pound test line, which allows a little bit more sensitivity. There's one. And some weeds. If you try to use something without, the beauty of that weight on the bottom is it keeps the flies up above the weeds. And on this particular setup, there's the flies. We have it's called a drop shot setup. You can slide this up and down the line and kink it in anywhere you want. That sets it up with only about 12 inches between your fly and your bottom weight. But out here, it seems like about 21 inches is the key. Drop it down again. 42 feet here probably, and it's just a matter of seconds to get that thing right to the bottom and get the fly presented exactly in the strike zone. We've got, I think on this one right now, I have one perch eye. There's another hit. One perch eye and one maggot. I don't overload it with too much of anything, especially, they're biting light today. There's a small one. They're biting light today, and it seems like if you offer them a big meal, it's too much for them, and they're not going to take it. They'll swim up and look at it, but they won't take it. Perch are very sensitive to the barometric pressure. As that pressure increases on them, it pushes on their air bladder. Unlike trout and stuff can adjust that air bladder, perch, it's a several hour process through their stomach to adjust the pressure in that air bladder. So as the weather changes, it can make it very hard for them to feed, especially to feed on something big. Let's see if we can get a nicer one here. You see what, I'm not really doing much for action. I know I'm right in the strike zone. I'm just above the weed line, which is right where they'd expect a nymph to be swimming. So lift a few inches, and then I dead stick it again on the bucket. Nice, so you get another one to snag it. Sometimes I envision them, they're just sitting there looking at that bait, eyeball to eyeball with it, and they haven't made their decision. And I just kind of force the issue by pulling it away from them. And a lot of times that'll get a bite. You also notice with this light bite, it's probably about 15 degrees out here, and there's no ice on that. It's amazing how well that works and stays clean. And it gives you all the sensitivity you need. So, sometimes the smaller perch actually will hit it more aggressively, and the bigger ones, they'll go up and just bite it and sit on it. Sometimes if you don't get them right off, especially out here, it seems like if you don't get them within a few seconds or a minute, it pays first to come bring it up, check your bait. Bait's clean and fresh, and check for weeds. I drop one more time. If I don't get another one, if I don't get another bite in a minute, I'll drill sometimes only 20 feet away and work it again. Sometimes the perch school has moved on. Sometimes you're in such a thickly weeded spot that they can't see it from far. Sometimes if you can just find a spot where there's an open area, you can limit out on a hole. And it's not so much that there was a massive amount of fish there, but oops, there's another hit. Oh dear. Oh, yeah.
You got it.
I thought I had a lake trout on there for a second. Probably had weeds on the bottom. It's amazing that this morning we caught our 8th lake trout. There's a nice perch. Our 8th. Good morning, YouTubers. We just got off the ice from another day out on Lake George, and that was our catch for the day. We even got a lake trout and probably 70 or 80 perch here. We love perch. There's nothing better than catching a nice perch, and having perch for dinner is about as good a food as it gets. And we caught all of these fish actually on a perch fly rig. I want to actually spend a little time and explain how we're getting these fish. We don't have a flasher, we don't have a Vexlar, we're just doing it the old-fashioned way. This is the rig that all these fish were caught on, even the lake trout. Simple, we got 4-pound test line, almost any rod. This is actually a homemade rod. This is a light bite strike indicator. And tied in here is a perch rig, fly rig. So on a 20-pound test line, so the thing does not get twisted into itself. More limber line, get twisted in. And more limber line, you won't catch those lake trout. You'll end up losing instead of getting them. So, and it also holds the fly out. The trick of what we're doing, we're presenting a very small bait. That's a size 14 nymph right there with a single maggot on it. And I think the real trick, there's a lot of days when you can't do anything wrong with perch. They'll bite anything, they're hitting minnows, they're hitting everything they can find. And there's a lot more days when the pressure on them, the barometric pressure, the weather changes, or whatever it is, has made it so they can only feed on micromic things, such as a nymph or something even smaller. So we found this works very well. Also, on the bottom here, we've got a 1 ounce bass casting sinker. So there's no more feeding the line down the hole. These fish were swimming around about 42 feet of depth. It takes a long time to get down, and with a school of perch, often if you don't keep their interest there, the school will move on. You can lose a lot of time just dropping a lighter rig down. So this has got a 1 ounce sinker on the bottom. In this lake, or Lake Georgia, we just caught these, there's a weed bed that the fish, the perch, pretty much live in. And that weed bed stands, the weeds stand about that high. The perch are in there. This drops, you feel that weight hit the bottom and put a little bit of tension on. The weed bed's here, and you have these nymphs swimming right in the strike zone, just out of the weeds, so the perch can just come up and take them. So we'll drop it down to the bottom, pull up a little bit of tension, just so that bobber just starts to bend. And a lot of times we'll just set it on a bucket, let it do its thing on its own. There's enough current, there's enough going on in 42 feet of line to make a movement that a nymph would be doing. And watch that indicator. The indicator sometimes, especially with a big perch, they'll come up, they'll take it, and they'll just sit there. And you'll see just a slight change at the indicator, set the hook and reel it in. A lot of fish. For years I sat there holding my rod, waiting for a heavy bite, and it just wasn't there. And I've missed I don't know how many fish that just, they were taking it, but I never knew. They took it, they probably played with it a little bit and spit it back out. We put a single maggot on each one of those and drop it down. If you're fishing in shallower weeds or in mud flats, this is actually, it's called the drop shot rig. It's kind of the clip has a tightening mechanism to it. So I can slide that up the base line and kink it in. And now, if I'm in a mud flat, I'm fishing 9 inches off bottom, which is usually a good spot on a mud flat. They don't want to come up way high because they could be drawing in more predators. And with this setup, you could be fishing around in different locations with different weeds or non-weeds, and you can adjust that height. Sometimes the weeds have died off a little bit and you want to reduce that. And this allows you to drop quickly right to the strike zone. You've got the sensitivity you need to feel them, and you can hit them and reel them in. As soon as you get one, you reel it in, and you take it off the hook and you get right back down there. And I really believe in call your buddies over. When you get a school like this, you want to get activity going on there. Call your buddies over, drill as close as you can. The beauty of these weights is they drop straight down, unlike a lure that would kind of drift around. You can fish fairly close together and get a real feeding frenzy going. And a lot of times a lake trout will see all those fish going up and down. They'll come over to investigate, and we've managed, this is the 9th or 8th lake trout so far while we were perch jigging that we've got on these fly rigs. If you're interested in getting either the light bite spring bobber or the fly rigs are available on eBay. They give you everything you need except the weight. You got to get a 1 ounce weight or less if you're fishing shallower. And the light bite bobber is available at lightbitebobber.com. Good luck fishing.